So, without further ado, let's start our Titanic class with Jane Townley.
Well, welcome to the Titanic. We are not going to go down with the ship tonight. Always good. However, some of you may sink, so pace your wines. Just pace your wines. The Titanic was a ship of unparalleled beauty and luxury. She was built to resemble the finest hotels of the world at the time she was built, with mahogany and hand-loomed rugs, stained glass. The bathroom fixtures were absolutely gorgeous and luxurious for first-class passengers. Second-class passengers did not have staterooms. They had cabins, which were still quite nice. Third-class passengers had berths. And by the time you got to the crew, you were down in the bowels of the ship, where things were a little rough. The ship was powered by steam engines that were coal-fed. So not a coal engine, but to keep the fire hot, they kept putting coals into a furnace, which would then steam power the ship. Now I bring that up because I want to talk to you about the way I've tweaked The Last Dinner on the Titanic. This started with a book called The Last Dinner on the Titanic, and there are specific recipes in your handout from that dinner. However, the times and the tastes of all of us have changed. Back to that coal thing. So there you are down in the bowels of the ship in a very, very, very hot environment. You have a team of men, all Irish, known as the Black Men, who spent all their time in the dark next to the furnace shoveling coal in. That's all they did 24/7. The coals were fired essentially in 4-hour shifts with a constant temperature being maintained. Very efficient to put your kitchens immediately adjacent to the coal rooms. Because what do you do in a kitchen? You cook where it's hot, right? So the kitchens are also very, very hot places. Regular temperatures are in excess of 110 degrees. The food is held at the other end of the ship, away from all the hot stuff where it can be kept cool and cold depending on how low it's placed in the ship, the bottom of the ship. Runners bring the food back and forth. In order to maintain food safety and also to present an appearance that is commensurate with the times, the chefs on the Titanic went for a lot of chaud-froid work, C-H-A-U-D-F-O-I-E-S, or F-O-I-S. I'm never quite sure, my French is not good, which meant that most foods were covered with a very thin layer of gelatin, and leaves or cut vegetables were pressed into this to present a beautiful, elegant appearance. Who here wants to eat a thin layer of flavorless, tasteless gelatin? I know, not me. So I've tweaked the recipes a little bit in keeping with our modern sensibility. So as we get plugged into that, we're going to start with our first wine, Tom and Lori. Our first wine happens to be a very beautiful French champagne. Now, if you were on the Titanic, you probably drank almost wholly French wines. You may have had some Portuguese port, you may have had some lighter, sweet German wines, but the dominant wines of the day were French. They were considered the vintners of the world, and that's what you drank. So tonight, we too are going to join the passengers of the Titanic, and we're starting off with a François Molton champagne. This is 11.5% alcohol by volume. I mentioned that because the alcohol by volume is going to tell you a little bit about how the wine tastes on your palate, or what to expect on your palate. Thank you. So, let's start off with taking a look at the champagne. Don't swirl, don't drink, just gaze longingly into the bubbles. Tell me what kind of colors you see in this beautiful glass. Is it purple? Is it bright fuchsia? Is it a dark magenta? Or is it something else altogether?
Gold.
It's gold. Anybody else?
She's got
Straw. Anybody else? I see a very pale gold, and it rims pretty true, also to a gold, but with a hint of silver at the outside edge. You'll notice this has little teeny tiny bubbles going up the glass. What that tells us is that this is the good stuff. If you see large bubbles coming up in the glass, that tells us that somebody has injected CO2 into the wine to make bubbles. If you drink that wine, which generally goes for around the $2.99 a bottle price point, you will, I guarantee it, get a screaming headache. Never drink large bubbles. Drink small, tiny bubbles. Okay, now that we've looked at the color, again, don't swirl the glass. Stick your nose in there and have a big old huff, and tell me what you smell. Strawberry. Anybody else? Honey. Anybody else? Citrus. I'm getting yeasty, toasty notes with just a hint of Asian pear in the background. And something vaguely floral, like maybe a little honeysuckle in your yard. All right, now you can start to drink. Now, the reason I told you not to swirl your glass is because when you swirl your glass and you're drinking champagne, you assault the bubbles. God forbid we should assault bubbles. The other thing that you always want to do when tasting wine is hold the glass by the stem. Never hold the glass by the bowl. The heat from your hand can actually affect the chemistry of the wine and not in a happy way. So as my servers go out, I'm going to ask Tom to tell us a story about this wine, because I know he's got one.
So Francois Monton, so Blanc de Blanc. And what's interesting about this is that this falls into the Cremant category. Francois Monton was very prominent in the designation of the Yara region of France, where the Cremants are made. And what's nice about that is that if you make a what we call a champagne in the Champagne region of France, which is a small designated region, they call it champagne in France. If you do the exact same method, the exact same grapes, exact same process, and you do it outside the Champagne region, you have to call it something. So, because that is a rule, it's a law. So this is a Blanc de Blanc, and if you've ever had a Cremant, this is also very similar to a Cremant. And the region is actually in northeastern part of France, against the mountains. And I have to say that the blend itself, which is very nice, it's a 9% blend of Commemorate, Uni Blanc, and Chardonnay. So those are the grapes that are in it. Probably you've ever heard of such grapes.
So we're serving this one. Oh, I'm sorry, Tom.
Go ahead.
We're serving this one tonight with not a poached salmon with a mousseline sauce. Poached salmon, you probably all know. You put salmon in a wine or court bouillon bath. Cook it gently with some seasonings till it's done. Thank you. All is well. Mousseline sauce in 1912 equated to pureed, fill in the blank, shrimp, scallop, salmon, whatever it was, stabilized with gelatin, covering the salmon with gelatin. There you have it. Didn't think you'd like that so much. I know I wouldn't. So this is a salmon pate with a watercress layer, and it's served with a watercress mustard sauce. As you try that, what I'd like you to do is take a sip of the wine, a bite of the food, a sip of the wine, and then tell me what they do for one another. Do they complement? Do they contrast? Do you like the pairing? Do you not like the pairing? And by the way, all answers are 100% correct because your palate is uniquely individual. And what somebody else at your table tastes, you may not taste. You know, we can taste 5 things in this world. We can taste sweet, sour, salty, bitter, and umami. That's that mouth-watering deliciousness taste, which, by the way, has now been genetically identified. It's no longer chefs just saying that. Scientists say it too. But we can smell 2,000 things, gentlemen. Ladies, you can smell 4,000 things.
Oh, really?
Because as we all know, women smell better than men.
Yeah.
So, that's why we always sniff the wine before we drink it, because it's likely to enhance your experience altogether. I want to talk a little bit about how champagne is made. All grape juice is white. Let's start with that. Except for the Norton grape, which is a varietal unique to the United States. You don't see it in wine very often. It's actually not a bad wine, but you don't see it in wine very often. So all grape juice is white. The amount of time the grapes spend in contact with the pulp and the skin is what turns wine colors. Richer, darker wines, like a Cabernet Sauvignon, are pressed and to a large extent vented in contact with the skins and the pulp. Something that's clear or lightly gold like this touches the skins for a very brief amount of time. And the skins to begin with are of green or yellow grape. So the skins are pressed, or the grapes are pressed, the skins and the pulp are extracted. The wine is put into vats or barrels, and a dosage of sugar and water or last year's wine are added together with yeasts. The yeasts consume the sugars, and the wine is racked off. That is to say, the clear, gorgeous stuff is pulled off the top, and the schwitz is left on the bottom. Now, racking can happen up to 5 times. Most winemakers do it once or twice, and then they go to the aging process. Some winemakers do it more. That's all the vintner's art and the vintner's choice. So after in champagne or Cremant manufacturing, after they have racked it off however many times they're going to, they then put it into this exact bottle, which is a classic kind of shape, and they put a cap on it. Those of you who are in my demographic, do you remember Coke bottles that used to pop off? It was called a coffin key or a church key.
Yeah.
That's the kind of cap they put on it. But before they cap it, they add some more yeast and another dosage. Now the second dosage is very often last year's wine, but it can also be cognac, or it can be brandy, or it can be whatever the winemaker chooses. That bottle is then put into a riddling rack at an angle about like this, and it's turned every so often until all the yeast travels down the bottle and is in the neck. At that point in time, this is dipped into liquid nitrogen. The yeast plug disgorges, and that classic kind of umbrella or balloon basket cork is put in, and presto changeo, you have gorgeous sparkling wine, or a Cremant, or an Asti, or a Prosecco, or a Cava, or a Champagne. In this case, you have a Cremant. So, having said all that, as I'm talking, you've now had a chance to taste. What do you think?
Yummy.
Does the wine work with the food? Does the food work with the wine?
Wonderful.
The wine tastes better.
The wine tastes better with the
Is
food.
enhanced by
How so? Tell me. Sweeter, sharper, more
I think, for me, more intense with
more
the food.
intense with the food. Good enough. Anybody agree? Anybody disagree? Because you're all right, whatever you say. All right. Let's go back to 11.5% alcohol by volume. That is the winemaker's guess. When the wine is put into the bottle, the winemaker goes. And that's based upon experience and testing throughout the winemaking process. But all it is a guess, because the alcohol by volume will change when the wine is bottled or decanted or whatever else. What it does tell us, though, is how that's going to feel on our palates. This feels a lot different than a very big aged Cabernet. This feels smooth and subtle and tingly with little star bubbles. I like this stuff a lot. So we're going to play what I call my favorite game. My favorite game goes like this. You guess how much Tom is going to charge for this wine tonight. There is no particularly wrong answer, but there is only one right answer. If you guess correctly, you get the pleasure of turning to your neighbors and saying the 3 best words in the English language, I was right. So, having said that, how much do you guess this wine is going for tonight?
$45 maybe?
$45. Excellent guess. This is a French import. Lovely. Anybody else want to take a guess?
$13.99.
How much? $13.99. 18?
39.
39.
50.
$13.99. And you cheated because you bought this before.
Oh, are you serious?
So excellent, excellent wine. Beautiful with fish. Lovely with light chicken dishes. Wonderful with creamy cheeses. If you live in my household, great in the summertime with fruit, ice cream, and a straw on the back porch. Just saying. Okay, are you ready to move on, or would you like to linger?
Well, what was the right answer? My wine's
$13.99.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, excellent
I
wine,
think
huh?
everyone should buy a bottle.
I think everyone should buy a bottle too, because it's really good stuff. A word about aging this wine. You often hear stories about how long should I hold my wine. When you buy a sparkler, don't hold it, drink it. Go home, put it in your cellar. Who here has a wine cellar? Anybody here have a crawl space under their house? You got a wine cellar. Put this, if you don't have a crawl space, does anybody have a closet that's kind of, you know, in your bedroom or your hall or something? You got a wine cellar. Put it on its side. We always hold wine on its side. I use those plastic milk crates that you can buy at
People
Walmart.
think you're a closet drinker if you do that.
Yeah, no, I'm out front with it. I'm right here right now, baby. No closet drinking for this girl. So just hold it, but don't hold it for long. Keep a sparkler no more than about 6 to 18 months. Drink it. If you buy it, drink it. Most wines today are vinted to be enjoyed immediately. As we go through our wine progression tonight, we'll talk about how to hold what. Okay, Tom, I know we have another lovely wine coming. As Tom comes around with the wine,
Oh, well, you left out.
I'll talk to you a little bit about our next course.
They're all underground.
Consommé soups were considered extremely restorative, and so they were frequently served at the classic progression dinner. By the way, all dinners on the Titanic were classic progression, which meant essentially you're looking at 13 courses. We're not doing that many tonight. I can't eat that much. I'm sure that nobody else can too. But it went in a classic progression from something like an amuse-bouche to stimulate your appetite through a starter course or an appetizer, generally fish, then soup, then fowl, then intermezzo, then meat, then a vegetable course, then salad, then a sweet, and then cheeses. And I'm sure I missed some in between here and there. These were all prepared in different stations in the Titanic kitchen because this was a classic French brigade. Each station, whether it was the fish station, the soup station, the garde-manger station, the griardine, whatever it was, had its own chef and staff of sous chefs. If you look at your handout, you will notice that sadly most of those people perished on the Titanic.
How long would dinner last if it's 18 hours?
What a wonderful question. How long would dinner on the Titanic last? Until you died of overeating. Actually, the classic dinner there would probably have gone about 3.5 to 4 hours.
Every night?
Every night. And for those of you who are wondering, yes, they did finish dinner before the ship sank. Always important. So, a lot of consommes were served in that day because it was considered very much a restorative kind of preparation. Classic consomme. You take, oh, by the way, not only the Titanic recipes, but all my recipes are also included in your packet tonight, and I encourage you to try them. If you look through and you have a question about an ingredient or a technique, speak up. I'm happy to answer whatever your questions are. So, classic consomme starts with a stock. Whatever the consomme is, that's what the base stock is. You cannot make chicken consomme out of meat. You can only make it out of chickens. At the time,
Where do you get pheasant in Reno?
we'll get to that in just a second. At the time the Titanic was sailing, it was very much in vogue to serve beef consomme, and they flavored this with fish. Okay, wait a minute. Beef consomme, but they flavored it with fish. Okay, who wants to try that? Not me. So tonight you are having pheasant consomme.
There you go.
And there is some pheasant breast in there for you to try. Where do I get pheasants in Reno? Thank you. I have a commercial purveyor, Sierra Meats. They bring them in for me. Pheasant is considered a game meat, and you certainly can hunt for pheasant, checker, all that stuff in Nevada. I can't serve it to you by law, and it is not to be found in a restaurant by law. Any game meat is in fact and indeed a farmed meat. And it is a wild thing. It's not in a cage, but it is a farm so that you are not susceptible to any diseases which might be running through the population in a wild setting. Alrighty, so here we are with our second wine. First thing I want you to notice is, remember my talk about time on the skins. Anybody can see a color difference between these two?
Yeah.
This is a rosé, sparkling rosé. And what I'd like you to do, you can see that color, but call out some descriptors. Anybody here see bright green?
Oh, I see a light green.
You see, you
I
do.
see gold. I see gold. I see
You
light
see
gold.
gold,
I see
okay. Anybody else? What colors do you see? Peachy, yes.
Pink gold.
Pink gold.
I can see a
Anybody
light
else?
green.
That indicates to us that they have used, in addition to whatever other grapes they may be using, something that's a red grape, hence the color, but a very light contact with the skins. Right now that we've admired the color, and you'll notice again, teeny tiny little bubbles. Stick your nose in there, have a big old huff. Judy, no drinking yet. I know you're going for it. Stop it. Stick your nose in there, have a big old huff, and tell me what you smell.
Leaves.
Yeah, very different.
Leaves? Leaves.
Flower, it smells floral.
It smells floral. What a great descriptor. Anybody else? Did I hear somebody say they smell leaves?
She did. Leafy.
What a wonderful term. I like that. It's great. Anybody else?
You know, like in autumn when you
An autumn kind of smell. Lovely. I'm getting faint, myself I'm getting faint notes of strawberry on this one. Just a little on the back end. So as you taste, I'd like Tom to tell us a story about this one, because I know he's got one.
Yes, so again, Francois Monton. Again, different grapes. So this is Grenache and soup salt. So again, both French grapes, but again, a whole different flavor profile. What's nice about bubbly is you have that constant of the wonderful bubbly and the fresh aspect of that. But when you go red, you want a little bit more flavor. And again, you're talking about pairing. So lovely, bubbly.
And I think as we are enjoying a bubbly, as our lost survived or lost people on the Titanic did. So perhaps we should take a moment and lift our glasses to the memory of those souls who did perish on the Titanic. May they rest in peace. For those of you who've been to the classes before, you know that my 96-year-old father often attends. He's very cute and he's very British. And he was telling me the story last time of coming to this country in 1940. My dad came in 1947, and as they crossed the Atlantic from Great Britain to the United States, they actually circled the spot where the Titanic, they thought the Titanic had gone down, it was 13 miles with it, to pay memory to those who had perished, and they went on. He remembers that quite clearly. Would you like to go out with our next course? Please? He's clearing. So, pheasant consommé and a rosé sparkler. When you taste wine, don't be shy about slurping the wine in through your mouth. One of the things that does is really open your palate to a greater variety of flavors, and it will taste different at the front of your palate than it does at the back of your palate. By slurping a little bit, first off, you're showing the world that you know more than the rest of them. And secondly, you're really going to add something to the taste of it. So, as we come around, bon appetit, give me input. I love hearing it.
On the consommé or the champagne?
Yes. The question was input on the consommé or the champagne, and the answer was yes.
Yeah.
By the way, are there any questions on the recipes thus far? The difference between this and the one on the Titanic is obviously this is a pure pheasant consommé and does not include a fish component because if you take a look at the consommé recipe, you'll notice that there are egg whites and ground pheasant. You can use chicken meat. That's to actually clarify your consommé. After you've made your stock and you've strained it off 2 or 3 times, and it usually does take that many times, you julienne or fine cut celery, onion, and you add that to ground meat, usually the same meat that the consommé is, and egg whites. You plonk it on into the old trusty stock pot, and it comes up to the top and builds a raft. That raft drags all the impurities away from the body of the consommé, and it's what enables it to be absolutely clear. Time-consuming, but not difficult process. So another little anecdote about the Titanic. There were 3 dogs on the Titanic. One was a French bulldog, and Tom and Laurie have a French bulldog. I don't know what the other 2 were, but one of them at least did not make it because the owner said, if my dog can't come into the lifeboat, I'm not getting in the lifeboat. And sadly, they both went down with the ship. One did make it, which begs the question, how was that dog hidden? Because I'm pretty sure that if it came to a person or a dog, and I love dogs. I have many dogs in my life and in my home, but the dog can go down with the ship, and I'm saving my kid most of the time. And the 3rd dog we don't know about. So dog stories from the Titanic, for those of you who are dog lovers. If you're a cat lover, I have no stories, sorry. I don't know of any cats on the Titanic, I just know about the dog stories. So what do you think of this combo?
I like
Do
it.
the wine and the food work together?
Yes.
What do they do for one another? Does it make the wine sweeter? Does it make it more intense? Does it heighten a specific flavor, like strawberry or leaves, or we have another great floral? Anybody?
It makes it less dry.
Makes it less dry, okay? So it does enhance the sweetness a little. The opposite, or actually dry would make it a little more sweet. French wines go backwards, so a dry wine is often sweeter than is a brut. which is not so sweet. I never can understand that. It's completely counterintuitive to me that that's the way it works. So it makes it a little sweeter, or are you doing American dry, it makes it a little less sweet? Question. When you say
Maybe it makes the champagne taste sweeter.
makes sweeter, so it is drier. Good for you. Yeah. Anybody else? Anybody else get a whole different flavor? Wine and food, like suddenly you're tasting bananas? No bananas, okay. So any questions about any of the recipes? I believe that in your consommé recipe I have used the term concasse with regard to tomato. Concasse simply means a rough chop. Normally when we're preparing food, we like to have all the pieces in a uniform size. The purpose of that is to make sure they cook uniformly. Something doesn't cook before something else. When you concasse chop, you are simply rough chopping it to get the ingredient into the dish. You don't need to make it look pretty. When you get to the clarification portion of the consommé, I believe in the instructions I have referenced julienne, long, thin cuts. Classic julienne is a quarter of an inch by a quarter of an inch by a quarter of an inch square and long, 2.5 to 3 inches long. A brunoise is taking that into quarters and going very, very fine with little teeny tiny dice. For what it's worth, the French and the Titanic taught us a lot about cutting. So, if I could have an empty bottle of that for a minute, please, or a full bottle. But if I drink it, I can't be responsible. So this beautiful sparkler is 12% alcohol by volume. When you tasted this, did you get a little more of a, not bite, but a little perkier sensation on your tongue? A little stronger, something that was not quite as soft as the previous one. A little more strongly tasting on your palate.
A little tart.
A little tart. A little more tingly, yes, excellent descriptive. That will be an increase in the alcohol by volume. Again, doesn't impact the quality of the wine at all. Simply gives an indication of how much strength will come to our palates. That's about it. This is made also classic methode champenois, same way we made the other one. So, beautiful French wine again, and I'm trying to see if this is a vintage. Anybody ever noticed how the print on most things is getting smaller and smaller? I'm just, observing this here. My arms are getting shorter, the print is getting smaller. This is a non-vintage. Again, you don't see a lot of vintage champagnes because you aren't meant to hold this forever. Even a really great vintage champagne is still going to have about a 3-year lifespan. They simply are not meant to be held in your cellar forever and ever and ever. So, what would you like to pay for this? No, what? I know what you would like to pay. Fee and free is not happening. What are you going to pay for this beautiful wine tonight? Don't you dare say $13.99.
I know, that's not fair. I'm
Don't
gonna
even go there.
19.
14.99.
19,
I still
14,
think it's under, but I'm gonna.
$16.99. Anybody else? Right here at 20? 18?
18.99. 19.
19. Very good. $15.99. What else can you do with this? This with salmon is lovely. This as a celebratory wine at Thanksgiving would be marvelous. This with turkey would be great. It goes beautifully with some cream-based pastas. I know that's your favorite. Always wonderful with cheeses. When do you drink a sparkling wine? How many here save sparkling wines for special occasions? By show of hands. One person only drinks drinks a sparkler only at a special occasion. I'm glad to hear that, because you should drink a sparkler whenever you feel like drinking a sparkler. Some nights my husband and I just look at each other and go, you know what would be really delicious tonight? Something with bubbles. And by that, we do not mean Coca-Cola. Ever. We never mean that. So, would you like to segue? Would you like to linger? Would you like to dance in the aisles and I'll put on conga music? No, okay.
So, a quick question.
Yes, question.
Since you're going to keep this wine in your wine cellar,
Yes.
which is generally somewhat less than room temperature, but you want it colder than that for a quick chill, do you recommend the freezer?
Would I want to serve a sparkler colder than wine cellar temperature? Classic wine cellar temperature is 55 to 58 degrees for what it's worth. Personally, no. I like to be able to taste more flavor, and I personally lose it when it's too chilled. Having said that, I am in the minority. Most people prefer to have a little chill on this. How do you get a quick chill? Well, for those of you who have one of those circulating chiller things, go for it. For those of you like me who don't, the best way to chill stuff down is an ice bath. In your sink, dump a bunch of ice. It's a great opportunity to clean out your ice maker anyway. Add some cold water. Stick the bottle in. It will chill down very quickly. If you want to hold it even longer, and you have something like, this is called a bus tub, but if you don't have a bus tub and you have any large container that you stick outdoor summer drinks in, or maybe just a big thing of Tupperware, or a pot, a large stock pot, whatever you have. Again, water, ice, and then add some salt. That'll really hold the temperature on this, whatever it is you're attempting to chill, very quickly. The only downside to that is that's not a combination you can use if you want to shock vegetables. Then you just go with the ice and water. But for chilling quickly, ice, water, salt. That's why so many people perished on the Titanic, because icy salt water, right? Seriously, 32 degrees, hypothermia sets in like that. Okay, looks like Tom is collecting these glasses, and he's going to be bringing out somebody else. Maybe you could help me by clearing for those who have finished, please. And we will move on to our next course. The course that was served on the Titanic was an asparagus salad with a champagne saffron vinaigrette. This is about the only dish that I haven't adjusted. I've added to it, however. I'm serving it on a bed of mixed baby lettuces. There's a little radicchio in there, a little frisee, mostly butter lettuce, and a little arugula. I wanted to do iceberg lettuce, but my husband and daughter said, too soon. Too soon, Mom. Too soon. So, no, you've got different lettuces tonight. And to that, I have added just a little tiny shave of manchego cheese, because I like it when I'm cooking. Enough said. So Tom is bringing around for you right now a white Bordeaux, and I know he has a glorious story with this, but before he tells this, one of the things I want you to look at is the white Bordeaux versus our very first sparkler. Do you see a color difference between these two wines?
Greener.
This is greener.
Deeper gold.
Deeper gold. That tells us something. The color difference does tell us a little bit about what the grapes are. And I agree, I actually get a deeper gold out of this. Now that as your glasses come around, after you look at the color, I want you for the first time tonight to swirl around. Now we do that to open the nose of the wine as it's in the glass. And you can swirl for 30 seconds, you can swirl for 2 minutes, you can make conversation and swirl. There are so many swirling options. You can swirl to the left, you can swirl to the right, but swirl away. And after you have swirled for a while, stick your nose in the glass and have a big old huff. Tell me what you smell. You smell the woods. Nice. Anybody else? Grapefruit. Anybody else? Tom, I know you got a great story about this wine. Because I've heard it, and it's very interesting.
Tom, I got
So, Chateau de Perrencaire, so French, obviously from the Bordeaux region of France. So, interesting little quote here. Robert Parker, one of the great wine critics in the United States, his comment was, "We are in need of more wines like Perrencaire. Excellent Bordeaux at sensible prices." So when I tasted this, I thought this is great, a delicious wine. It is a blend, like almost all French wines are. A lot of times we think of wines in this country as being, oh, it's a Chardonnay, or it's a Sauvignon Blanc, or it's a Merlot, or it's a Cab. But when you start learning more and reading more about French wines, you learn that almost all French wines are a blend. There are other wines in there. There's a lot more of that going on here than most people realize, because in the United States, as long as the grape that's stated on the label, Chardonnay, as long as 75% of the grapes that are in that bottle are Chardonnay, you can make the other 25% anything you want. So you are actually drinking a lot of blends. You just don't know it because it's not stated. But in this particular blend, you have Sauvignon Blanc and Semillon and Muscadet. So there's a little bit of Semillon, a little bit of Muscadet, and most of it is Sauvignon Blanc. What I love about this wine is it's amazing in the fact that several days later when you taste it, it still has that same profile. It really holds well. What I find is well-made wines do hold well. Ones that are not sometimes can turn bad as quickly as a couple of hours. So,
A word about varietals versus blends. Tom is absolutely correct. Most wines are blends. So how does that reconcile with the fact that we talk about a Sauvignon Blanc or a Chardonnay or a Cabernet Sauvignon? Are they that unusual? Well, no, most of them are still blends. By law, in France, 75% of the grapes need to be of a specific varietal in order for the wine to be called by that varietal. So if it's a Chardonnay, 75% of the grapes have to be Chardonnay. In the United States, 85% of the grapes need to be that varietal. However, most wines are tempered a little. Some of my favorite Cabernet Sauvignons are no more than 94-96%, which is a huge percentage of Cabernet Sauvignon grape. They are often finished off to a small degree with Cab Franc, frequently with Merlot. The purpose of that is to soften the harshness of the varietal grape on your palate. Pure, unfiltered, 100%, any grape is going to skew harsh. And harsh is not good. It needs to have just a little balance to it. And that's the vintner's art. If you've ever gone to a barrel tasting, you'll know that the vintner will dip into this and into that with a pipette until they get the blend exactly the way they want it to. And often it's no more than 1 or 2 drops, depending upon when the grapes, the varietal grape, was harvested, at what Brix, B-R-I-X level. That refers to the, amount of sugar that is in the grape when it is harvested and crushed. And so all these things can factor. But again, you very rarely have a single all varietal. In fact, I don't think I've ever tasted 100% anything, because even if they say, oh, it's 100% this, I'm pretty sure it's not. So when we get these, if you guys want to go out, that would be lovely. And again, we are serving this with the asparagus salad, as crafted on the Titanic, with a couple of additions from me. But the dressing is as it is. Very, very simple to make, very tasty, and I hope you enjoy this. By the way, don't forget to tell me what you think of the combo, because that's really good for me to hear. Do they work together? I think they do, because I did this combo last week, and I actually think they do really well, but you'll let me know too.
So I had a little note about white Bordeaux's out of the Bordeaux region is the amount of white grapes grown in the Bordeaux region of the total amount of grapes that are grown in Bordeaux is numbers around 7 or 8%. So as you can see, most of the grapes that are grown in the Bordeaux region are red. Therefore, famous Bordeaux. But I happen to really like this particular wine because it is Christmas and yet around give it touches around this. Obviously, where the grapes kind of fill in that sodium.
Oh, are you? Yes.
So I just got asked a really great question. What were the serving portions on the Titanic? Well, it's interesting to note that the Titanic actually had commissioned flatware, china, and glasses exclusively for that ship. And you can buy some replicas online even now. They're just gorgeous, gorgeous pieces of flatware and just beautiful things. But if you take a look at the size of those items, you will notice that the dinner plate is a 9-inch dinner plate. Now, most of our dinner plates that we enjoy today, most of the services you see are a 10 to 11-inch dinner plate. We have, in fact, indeed supersized our plates. The same is true for soup bowls. Whether the soup was a clear or a cream soup, that would affect the shape of the bowl. The bowls were generally a 6-ounce portion. Most of our soup bowls now are an 8-ounce portion. We have increased our portion size, there's no doubt about it. So in answer to your question, what do I think the Titanic portions were? Not so Titanic compared to today's standards. And I actually am serving smaller portions tonight. We're right in theme. Oh, by the way, for those of you who did wear costumes, I am in costume. This is vintage Titanic. Looks exactly the same as chef's outfits do today because our clothes haven't changed in about 100
Except for the footwear.
If you're making this dish and you're not serving champagne, and you don't want to open a bottle of champagne in order to make 1 ounce of champagne, what else could you substitute instead of champagne?
So if you're making this dish and you're using exactly the recipe as I've written, which calls for an ounce of champagne, Do you really want to open a whole bottle of champagne for 1 ounce? Well, in the world, according to me, absolutely. Hello. But not everybody agrees with that. So what can you use as a substitute? Think about what is in champagne. Most champagnes or sparkling wines are Chardonnay. Most of them are Chardonnay based. Use a Chardonnay. If you like something that's a little tartar, use a white Bordeaux, which is basically Sauvignon Blanc. If you like something that is more mellow, perhaps a Semillon or a Viognier. If you are one of those individuals who like something that skews a little sweet, like a Gewürztraminer or a Riesling. The one thing I can tell you about cooking with alcohol, if you would not drink it, do not cook with it. If it tastes nasty when you drink with it, it's going to be nasty when you cook with it. So, always cook with a wine that you would drink. Now, that does not mean that, yeah, I know, I'm a little short girl, you can't see me. That does not mean that you have to open a bottle of a 58 Mission Aubryon to cook your demi-glace with. That is not necessary. However, knowing the varietal or the blend of the wine does put you in a position to buy the same type of wine. For example, Tom, call out the name of a less expensive Chardonnay. Napa style.
Beer.
Okay, Beringer. Napa style Chardonnay, that means you get the oaky, buttery taste on it. Not the world's greatest wine, but a pretty decent wine. Let's say you want to drink Rombauer or Frank Sellers. Yeah, because there's nothing wrong with Rombauer ever. Let's say you want to drink that, but you want to make a dressing and you're serving 50 people. Open a bottle of the Beringer. It's the same varietal, and it will enable you to cook guilt-free. Actually, I always cook guilt-free. But for anybody who ever has guilt when cooking, you can cook guilt-free. So it's just it's a great way to go for cooking. In answer to your question, anything that's going to skew with a palate that is vaguely sweet, because this has got shallots and saffron in it, so you're getting the sweet of the shallot. Shallot, God crossed an onion and garlic and said, boom, that's a shallot. So that's what you're looking at. Did you like this combo? Yeah. Okay, good. So, when you're on the Titanic, of course, and you're having your 13 courses worth of dinner, you need to get from here to there. But before we get from here to there, we haven't played my favorite thing, because I'm a bad chef, naughty bad chef. All right, so for this beautiful, can I have a bottle, an empty bottle, please? Thank you so much. So for this beautiful white Bordeaux, this is a 2009, this is a vintage wine. 12.5% alcohol by volume. This is from Bordeaux. Just as with champagne, you can't call it a Bordeaux if it's from Poughkeepsie.
Do they make wine in Poughkeepsie?
Pardon me?
Do they make wine in Poughkeepsie?
Absolutely. Every bathroom has it not. So this is an actual, honest-to-God Bordeaux, delicious with chicken, marvelous with salad, terrific with sharper dry cheeses, Jack, Manchego, really marvelous with like a vodka cream sauce with pasta. It'd be a really nice harmony with that. I think you could do this with veal. I would not put this up against fatty, round ocean fish like tuna or salmon. I think that those tastes would overwhelm. I don't think I would put this with heavy red meats like prime rib, ribeye, filet. I certainly would put it with lighter meats. I can see doing this one actually with certain dessert courses. Ice cream with balsamic vinegar and ground pepper. I think you could drink this with that. It would be really interesting. Or maybe something with clove in it. Okay, so what are you going to pay for this glorious Bordeaux tonight?
20.
20. Anybody else? 18, 25. Anybody else?
1995.
1995. And now you can leave the room. Yes.
1995, 19, okay.
Actually, 1959. I had a little dyslexia.
1995.
Well, close enough.
I have to leave?
Yes, and no dessert for you either.
Darn.
Yeah. So as we clear, we're going to do that, which they did on the Titanic, and we are going to enjoy an intermezzo. I'll get a little bottle of something that's sparkly that I might be able to use. Intermezzo is a way to clear your palate in between one set of courses and the next set of courses. On the Titanic, they actually did something that they call a rose syrup. In fact, it was a frozen glacé. And for those of you who have ever had, thank you, for a little overreach, intermezzo, please, just a drop. For those of you who have ever had anything with rose water, think baklava. It's very, very cloyingly sweet. At the time, that was where your palate wanted to go. It's not where my palate wanted to go. So tonight I prepared for you an Earl Grey and blackberry sorbet, kind of homage to the British who launched the Titanic. And it will come around momentarily. We are drizzling it with just a tiny, tiny bit of a sparkling wine because I like it and I'm cooking it. So while that comes round, I will carve our entree. Your entree which is a roasted beef forestière between pink mushrooms, and I'm serving it with a Duchess potato. And I turned off my mic, sorry. A Duchess potato and a mushroom demi-glacé. Duchess potato. This is the other dish that I've done exactly as it was done on the Titanic. And the benefit of making a Duchess potato is that these things hold forever, which is why the Titanic did them this way. You incorporate egg and seasonings and butter to mashed potatoes, and then you bake it off in the oven. Thank you. And it will hold for hours and hours. Before you start to eat, though, I really, really, really want you to taste this wine because it's awesome stuff. First off, take a look at this color and use some words. Anybody here see a pale gold?
Burgundy, burgundy.
Burgundy color. Anybody else?
You know what, like a dark blue?
Like a dark blue.
Like dark.
Like a blue red versus orange red. Gotcha. Anybody else?
A little purple in there.
A little purple in there. I see a deep, rich velvet all the way to midnight. Now, as you swirl this wine around, and I do want you to swirl this one, you will notice that it leaves kind of a residue on the side of the glass.
That big legs.
That means the wine has good legs. Exactly correct. That's all that a wine having good legs means. It leaves a rich, beautiful residue on the side of glass. So swirl, 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 swirl. Stick your nose in there. Inhale deeply and tell me what you smell. Any words?
Oh, wait, how it smells?
What do you smell?
It smells good. No, I love the smell. It like
You smell good. Good is nice.
Good.
What does good smell like? Tell us.
It smells well.
Oak and earth notes. I agree. Anybody else? I'm getting notes of oak, perhaps a faint hint of cedar, something that's vaguely tobacco in a good way. So when I say that, not last week's cigarettes, but that fragrant first lit pipe smell, it's something that's vaguely leatherish. You know, that fine, beautiful, buttery leather that just smells good. Fine Corinthian leather is behind it. All right, so I know you're all overachievers and you started drinking. Tell me what you taste.
Oh, the irony.
Oh, this is good stuff. Tom, do you have a story about this? Oh, I do have a suggestion for this wine. Ladies, for those of you who have been investing in Calvin Klein or Sarah Jessica Parker or Michael Kors perfume. No. You love this? Just saying, your husband will love it. I know mine does. What, overshare? Sorry. Enjoy. Tom, tell us a story.
So, Chateau des Saint Combs on the Duke Albion, 2009 vintage. 2009 vintage in France, specifically in the Bordeaux region and then wider out from that, was considered to be one of the best premier vintages since 1962 in France. So it was a very highly rated vintage, and Wine Spectator did a whole huge article on the 2009 wine vintages from 2009 vintage from France. Lincoln. And the statement at the bottom of the article was, if you can find a 2009 wine from France, fine.
So I just have a great question. I included some information about degrees of doneness in your handout. And the question was, when you test your meat for temperature, is it at that temperature, like 120 is medium, when you pull it out, or do you want to get to that temperature? Great question. Whenever you roast meat, there is a degree of carry over heat. So you put the meat in the oven, you roast it off, and it continues to cook even after you pull it off. If you want to get to 120, my advice is you pull it at 110. 10 degrees. And although I can tell you by feel on a grilled piece of meat, like a steak on the grill, roasting I can only do by temperature. So let's go to grill for just a minute. Does anybody know how to test for grilled meat, degree of doneness? If you have a hand, you can test it. So touch your thumb to your finger and push right here. What's it feel like?
Well done.
Okay. Touch your ring finger. What's it feel like? Medium well.
I love that.
Uncooked. Don't ever do that. Unless you're serving tartar. So you don't need a thermometer if you're grilling meats. If you want roasted meats, you must invest in a reasonable kitchen thermometer, and then you have to calibrate it. How do you calibrate your kitchen thermometer that you just purchased from Walmart? Get a glass of ice water, put the thermometer in the ice water. It should be 32 degrees. If it's not, you actually turn the thermometer. There's a little nut that you can turn until the gauge, whatever it's called, the indicator, is at 32. Thereafter, your thermometer is calibrated. So I know you and I really just wanted to say it again because this is an exceptional wine. 2009 is really a remarkable year. Obviously roast meats, also wonderful with pastas, great with blue cheeses. I think you could serve this very, very well with game meats. In fact, I would really like this with buffalo or elk, because I like buffalo and elk, or venison. So having said all that, this beautiful 2009 Chateau de Chancourt, Le Deux Environ de Rome, which is 14.5% alcohol by volume. What are you going to pay for this beauty tonight? Do not dare say 13.
I'm not, okay, I have an idea.
And you, 15.99?
No, I'm not, no.
Just saying.
I'm gonna say $29.95.
We're getting better. Do I hear 35?
I would say more because it's an amazing wine. I would pay more for it. Honestly, it's delicious.
I think this is a $35
Yeah.
bottle of wine comfortably, which means that in a restaurant, we're going to pay somewhere between $70 and $90 per bottle.
Yeah.
All right, do we want to guess some? Come on, don't be afraid. I'll point and stare, but you seem to know. 27. Tonight, Tom is selling this for $23.99. And he is absolutely correct when he says, if you don't grab the other lines now, you're not going to grab this. I want to tell another little brief Titanic story that involves the captain's table. Has anyone ever heard of the author, the privilege? Sorry, just a moment, please. Has anybody ever heard of the honor and privilege, thank you, of sitting at the captain's table? And the kind of the schmaltz that goes with that? You can announce to your shipboard people, oh, I've been seated, yes ma'am, at the captain's table.
Oh, it is.
I'm sorry, on your mushroom demi-glaze, you say finish, insert French phrase here. What do you mean?
Read my mind.
Thank you.
No, we're good. Okay. At the end of the demi-glace recipe, I ask you to finish it monter au beurre. That means to mount the reduced mixture with butter. You take a little knob of butter, about a tablespoon, and you just finish it off. You want to accomplish two things with that. To give the sauce a really round mouth feel, hits all your palate points, A, and B, to increase the nappe of the sauce, which means the sheen as it lays on the plate.
Thank you.
Welcome. Okay, so back at the captain's table, quickly. The captain of the Titanic was a man named Edward Smith. And Edward Smith was a longtime captain of the White Star Line. In fact, at one point in his illustrious career, he had actually captained the Mauretania when it achieved its remarkable journey across the Atlantic in 4.5 days, breaking all speed records at the time. We're talking early 1900s. And he was, despite the sinking of the Titanic, actually a very good captain. He had sailed successfully for many, many years. It was just that last voyage that was a little
The killer. It was the killer.
So he was kind of a crusty old guy. Not quite as hard a drinker as he has purported to be, but a crusty old guy. And the White Star Line wanted, of course, to make its ships exclusive, exotic, luxuriant, abundant, delicious. And so they encouraged Captain Edward Smith to establish a captain's table, where certain very privileged passengers might be invited to eat. Edward, not such a big fan of this. So some nights he would fill his captain's table. This was long before the Titanic. And some nights he'd have 2 couples. And some nights he'd invite 1 person. Occasionally that 1 person was part of a couple, which was really, really awkward. But by doing this, he made the captain's table a desirable something. A goal to be achieved when cruising the Atlantic. I'm the captain, you're all at my table tonight. I'm glad you're here. So, Tom is coming out with a glorious dessert wine. Tom, is there a story as we look, sniff, swirl, and taste about this glorious wine?
Yeah, this is Holler Ruprecht 2009 Riesling. It's a cabinet. What's really kind of interesting is that the winemaker is very famous amongst the German Riesling winemakers. He's been known as a guy that kind of goes outside the box. What I mean by that is that there's a lot of rules and regs about where it needs to be grown and what clones and what varietals and certain areas and all of these things. And there's a lot of people that have been making it for a very long time. They're kind of stuck in that this is the way we've always done it and we will always make it this way and all of that. So he believes that you can go outside the box because it's really about the quality of what's the wine that's made and what's in the bottle. And so what I love about this wine is not only is it an amazing wine, amazing Riesling, but I have literally tasted this wine, same bottle, opened the bottle 4 days later, and the flavor profile is exactly the same. And I've run across very few white wines that is ever true of. But the quality of this white wine is amazing. That it would hold that long and still have that great a flavor profile. So anyway, enjoy this wine. It's fabulous.
So before you start drinking, or for those of you who are overachievers, after you've already started drinking, like these, I want you to take a look at the color of this wine versus our white Bordeaux. That's much sicker. I knew that was wrong, sorry. So take a look at these two. Now we have described this one as a gold. But can you see the difference against our chef whites? This is a rich, rich, dulcet gold. It's heavy and viscous. And leaves a beautiful kind of sweet, elegant covering in your mouth. That's because it is a sweeter wine with a somewhat counterintuitively much lower alcohol level. Having said that, the sugars, if you drink a bottle of this, will get you home real quick. Don't do that. Never do that. So, swirl it around. Stick your nose in there, have a big old huff, and tell me what you smell. Pear. Good one.
Citrus.
Citrus.
I smell a lot of citrus.
Pear, I definitely smell pear.
Pear. Citrus, pear.
I taste a little pear.
I'm getting something that's almost like a note of
Pear tree.
a little faint touch of mace. Something that's honey-like. And angelica, because I love angelica.
That's massive.
Getting any vanilla?
Not so much on my nose. Not so much. All right, go ahead, drink. Oh, wait. You all did, didn't you? So how about if we serve these people since they're already drinking? Overachievers that you all are. We're serving this tonight with fresh peaches that I have lightly macerated in chartreuse, served with vanilla bean ice cream, a chartreuse chantilly, and a not very sweet, deliberately peach shortbread. What is chartreuse? Chartreuse is a liqueur made in France by the Carthusian or something like that monks who started making this in the mid-1800s. It contains 130 different herbs. To my palate, if Fennel, Franz, and Angelica had a baby, it would be chartreuse. Now, chartreuse at one point in time was the joy of French kings because it was thought to elongate, prolong, and make better their lives. Probably after 2 or 3 bottles, anything felt like that. Eventually, sadly, however, it fell out of favor with the French kings, and the monks were all shipped out of country to Spain, where they went right back to making chartreuse. However, because they were in Spain, they added saffron. And now you can see chartreuse in 2 colors. Green, because they went back to France, which is the original color, and a kind of goldeny yellow, which includes the saffron, the Spanish version of the same liqueur. The difference is the yellow is about 40% alcohol by volume. Pretty darn alcoholic. The green is 80% alcoholic by volume. Really, really, really alcoholic. So when you cook with it, you use a little bit. You want to hint at chartreuse, not overwhelm with chartreuse. Overwhelming with chartreuse is the equivalent of drinking Red Sea. It's just too much to do. So bon appetit, enjoy, and I'll walk around again. We're not at the end yet. Now, because this is a ship that sailed out of Great Britain, we are doing a British progression of dinner. Not to be confused with the kitchen staff, which were primarily French chefs. In a French progression, you have fruit and cheese and a sweet following. This would have been the sweet. In a British progression, you have your sweet, the dessert, and then the fruit and cheese. And there's actually a very logical reason behind that. You need to finish off the rest of the wine. And you can't always do that with fruit, with a sweet. So when you get to the end of the dinner, if you have cheese, then almost everything is going to go with it. So the British serve their cheese at the end of dinner. And so too on our first class journey, we have some beautiful cheeses coming out and a glorious wine, which as Tom knows is one of my favorite wines in the world. For a period of time when he was having trouble getting this wine, he would bring it in and I would buy all of it. But now it's not as hard to get. So, yes, ma'am?
What did second class, the second class, sorry, never what did steerage?
What did second class and steerage get on the Titanic? Second class got pretty wholesome, friendly, recognizable foods, nothing haute cuisine.
Like beef stew?
But they would get a nice roast, and they would get probably a cream soup, and a more plain salad, certainly not a champagne vinaigrette with it. Steerage actually would get the beef stew. They would have oatmeal kind of dishes, or dishes where a dominant ingredient would be a starch as opposed to protein.
Did they have a dining room, or did they eat?
They all had, each class had its own dining room or rooms, depending upon the class, and you did not eat out of your class. The Titanic also had, for first class passengers, something that was rather unique. They had something that was called the cafe. And the cafe was actually a private dining room where the chef would come in and prepare a two-order meal for those who had chosen to hire the private dining room. It was a very expensive proposition. Now keep in mind, the high-end cabin in the Titanic, as noted in your handout, went for over $100,000.
In today's dollars.
In today's dollars. $100,000. That's a lot of money. And even the third class fares were still in the lower hundreds of dollars, which at a point in time, 1912, realize that $10 was an enormous amount of money then. So as we've adjusted for inflation, it was still a very high price. Okay, Tom's bringing out this glorious wine with the cheese plates. This is Eos, also called Tears of Dew. One of my personal favorites. This is a late harvest muscat. This is actually California wine, but it is so glorious with cheese that we just kind of had to have it. I whined enough that Tom went, okay, I'll serve it, because I really love this stuff. You'll notice that this comes in a 375 milliliter bottle versus the Riesling, which is in a 750 milliliter. You can drink a glass of this. You cannot drink a glass of this. It'll end badly. Trust me. Just trust me, okay? I'm not saying anything more. How much for the Riesling? I forgot to play my favorite game. Okay, so this is a Cabinet Riesling, 2009. Cabinet refers to the quality. It's like having a DOC after a French wine or an AOC after an Italian wine. It means that this wine has been crafted to a certain standard. This is not in a box. It does not have ripple after its name. This is the good stuff when you see cabinet. So this was 11% alcohol by volume, as I indicated, significantly less than the Rhone that we had. It's from Pfalz, which is somewhere in Germany, and my geography in Germany is very poor, so I can't tell you exactly where, but I believe it's somewhere towards the French side of things along the Rhine. So what are you going to pay for the 2009 glorious German Cabinet Riesling? Sorry, can't pronounce German. 17. Anybody else? Close. $15.99 here. Riesling. This goes gloriously well with foie gras. Eat it here, eat it now, because you can't get it anywhere in California. It also goes beautifully with chicken livers and a light pasta sauce tossed over pasta. It goes wonderfully well with most cheeses. I would guess that this probably goes well with pork dishes. Since I don't eat pork, I'm not entirely sure. But the meat-wise, it would make sense to me. Beautifully well with veal. Lovely with shrimp. Gorgeous with shrimp. Can be nice with scallops. Definitely good with crab. And anything goes with lobster. So, a lot of options in addition to doing it as a dessert wine. EX. Sweet, wonderful, dulcet, slides down your throat. Dulcet. If you want a real thrill in your life, you buy live lobsters and you poach them in this stuff, and then you drink it as well. Just trust me, it's amazing. It's just astounding. So, bon appetit. We neither swirl nor split. We just go right for the gusto. And Tom, tell us about the wonderful cheeses, please.
So the cheeses you have on your plate, again, staying within that theme, are French and English. So the cheese that you're having, the white one, is fromage dauphinois, which comes from France, triple rye, and it has a taste on it that is a mixture of orange marmalade, apricot, spices, fresh ginger, and then the other is Stilton, royal blue Stilton from England, drizzled with a honey. So again, these would be cheeses that they would have had access to aboard that ship. And again, the dessert wine you already know about. I think the pairing is quite wonderful and something that they would have probably enjoyed.
Is this not the most glorious wine? I love this stuff. I really do. And for those of you who have any special requests for upcoming classes, I can provide. I'm kidding. Eos, beautiful, beautiful wine. Many, many serving options with this. This, I think, comes in around 6% alcohol by volume, but I'm not sure because it has exceptionally small print. However, I have someone who's done better eyes than me. We have no idea. Okay. It is interesting. Late harvest Muscat wines, Muscat grapes, crushed, held at the end of the season. Faint, if you notice, effervescence at the back of your palate. It's that late harvest skewing toward botrytis, also known as the noble rot. It gives a really wonderful taste to late harvest grapes. That's the name of it. What are you going to pay for my favorite dessert wine?
$20.
It's on the shelf over here.
Well, then don't look at you. You cheated. Dad.
$22?
22? Anybody else? It is tonight $22.99.
Is that what we want to show?
And it is really good stuff. I really like this. We are now drawing to the end of our voyage tonight. You'll notice there have been no icebergs. Not even iceberg lettuce. And I'd like to take a moment to say thank you to Tom and Lori for sharing your glorious work.
For all the great work on the
Since this is not something that you would consume in a sitting, what's the life of an open bottle?